Who do you want taking that last penalty shot? Who's the biggest star on the women's basketball team? All this and more coming up on Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Maggie Smith, and tonight I have two of the most spirited debaters in Q30. I'm alongside Tom Krasnowski and Stephen Pappas. Let's get started.
Spirited indeed, Maggie. Dump and Change meets Q30 Sports. Let's get it on, Steve.
Yeah, this isn't the first or the last time me and Tom are going to be arguing in the next couple of weeks, so glad to get it on camera this time.
Well, to start, the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team is taking on Long Island University next Monday. Tom, what do you expect from this game, and how do you think the Bobcats will do?
Let's be honest, Maggie. We're not going to learn a whole lot about the Bobcats from this game. One of these teams is 12th ranked in the nation. The other one of these teams has 3 wins on the year. They've faced a couple of ranked opponents. They've lost all those games. So really, Quinnipiac should win this one quite handedly. So really, it comes down to what kind of takeaways are we taking from this game. And I really want to see the depth scoring pay off for this team the way it has been. Depth pays dividends. You may have seen that on the package a couple weeks ago. Last 5 games, got some numbers for you. Matt Fawcett, 3 goals, 6 points. Mike Lombardi's got a goal and 4 points. He's 5th on the team in scoring chances over that stretch. Cipollone's got a goal and 4 points. Christoph Fillion's got 2 goals and 3 points. All that's over his last 5 games. That's 7 goals from those guys, 17 points. That's like 2/3 of their entire season production for those guys, and that's a good thing. The production from the depth players is coming at the right time. It's coming when Odin Tufto and Ty Smolanic have had a bit of scoring drought to their game. And this is a good thing that needs to continue for the Bobcats, particularly into the playoffs. Steve, you were with me in Allentown a couple years ago, and you know who scored the goals for the teams in that game? It was all the depth players for Quinnipiac.
Yeah, I'm going to go in the other direction that you just went in. You went the depth. I'm going to go the stars. I think Odin Tufto, for as good as he's been this season, he's got to put the puck in the back of the net. Only 4 goals so far this year on a decent amount of shots, too. So his shooting percentage is pretty low. And that's the one knock, really, that you're going to have on Odin Tufto in his Hobie Baker candidate this season. Cole Caulfield has 15 goals and 17 assists. And he's right now outscoring Odin Tufto in that race. Tufto's 27 assists obviously leads the NCAA, but Tufto this year in 14 conference games, only 2 goals on 39 shots. That's 5.1% shooting, and 4 goals all season in 51 shots. That's a little better at 7.8%. Tufto, though, has gotten a lot better when it comes to generating his own scoring chances. He's had 10 shots so far in the last 3 games below the face-off dot, the opposing face-off dot. So he's getting his opportunities. It's now just a matter of when, because it's not if, it's when Odin Tufto will put the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a little nitpicky to be picking on Tufto because we know what's going to come, and as long as he's getting 27 assists, it's hard to complain. But you got a point there for sure. He does need to get the puck in the back of the net sooner or later.
Well, moving on, the men's ice hockey team has played in 4 games this season that have gone to shootout. Having played in this many overtime games, Steven, give me your best 3-man shootout lineup.
All right, so we're going to start in order, obviously. We'll start at number 1. It's Ty Smolanic. He brings a lot of versatility to that lineup. He can burn straight down the middle and put pressure on the goalie. Or, as we've seen in the last couple of games, he's been able to pull back and really use his creativity in his hands to make some moves. He still has yet to score, but he's got some sweet hands and a better shot. So the next time we see the shootout, I would expect to see Ty Smolanic put the puck in the back of the net. Number 2, it's got to be Desi Burgart. He's got a goal so far this season on 3 attempts. He has hit the post one time as well, so he is very electric when it comes to shooting the puck as well. He beat the Clarkson goalie straight off the shot. It just hit the post. And for me, number 3 has to be the captain. It's got to be Odin Tufto. He's so creative with the puck, and I know I just mentioned he doesn't score a lot of goals. He's the only player in Quinnipiac this year that has multiple goals in the shootout. So if I'm going down that lineup and we're sending out 3 guys, I'm going Smolanic, I'm going Burgart, and I'm going Tufto.
I've got 2 of those 3 same guys. I got a bit of a different order. I'm going to have Odin Tufto leading off. I always like to play from ahead rather than behind in sports, and why not put your best shooter first? Apply that pressure early on the goalie. Tufto's the only player this year for the Bobcats that has more than 1 shootout goal. He just has so many moves. Going against him first, I think, is a huge test that would make any goalie uncomfortable, get you off to that roaring start. I go Smolanic in the 2-hole. I think that's a good spot for him because if you get the requisite saves, he could win you the game, feasibly, if you get those 2 saves and you get those 2 goals. And I think that's a good spot for him. Like you mentioned, speed and puck skills, and the ability to do the speed and the puck skills, while going 20 miles an hour or whatever. That's the impressive part for Smolanek. He's tailor-made for the shootout. I'm going to go Peter Delibertori third. I like his creativity, particularly in the shootout. He does have a shootout goal this year. You're seeing it right there in close against Clarkson. Desi Burgard, he's a valid option. You had him too. He's got a goal in the shootout. He's been a wrist shot specialist. It's a good shot, but I like Delibertori's creativity and close, I think, to be a potential third-place closer in the shootout for me.
Well, we got to be honest. If we're looking at the rest of the Bobcat schedule for the rest of the season, in trouble if you end up in a shootout against some of the teams that they got in the rest of the year.
You won't be seeing too many of those in the playoffs.
Nope.
Well, we are coming down the home stretch in this year's women's ice hockey season. In the Women's Ice Hockey Conference, Tom, which teams do you see making it all the way?
Yeah, so for ECAC hockey, right, Colgate's clearly the best team in the ECAC Hockey Conference. They're 5th nationally. Clarkson, I know they're on a pause right now, but they are still 9th in the nation. They've beaten Colgate a couple of times, which is very impressive. So those 2 teams are definitely contenders. St. Lawrence, probably a pretender. You saw Quinnipiac take 2 out of 3 from them. Quinnipiac's that team that's in the middle, and it's good for our show because it gives us something to talk about. Quinnipiac's the most interesting team here. They're middling in the conference. They haven't shown an ability to consistently beat the elites of that conference, so they probably won't make the NCAA playoff as a result of that. So when it's all said and done, I do have Quinnipiac as a pretender. It's like the most competitive pretender you could possibly have because Quinnipiac doesn't get blown out in games. They can beat anyone on any given night. It's been this way for 4 years running. I think it's gotten better even. They never take games off. They're hard to play against. But you got to consistently beat some of these teams in your own conference if you're going to really be a conference elite. And 1-game playoffs in the tournament really does help them. I think they could certainly beat one of those 2 powerhouses. But 2 of them on the road seems like a tough ask for me.
Yeah, I think it's a little harsh to call them a pretender. But at the same time, you got to look at some of their...
That's the question.
Yeah, exactly. They are a pretender in my eyes as well, the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team. They're a really good team. They've beat up on some lesser opponents this year, specifically Sacred Heart and LIU. But they've had some games, most notably that last one, or the first game, against St. Lawrence last weekend. They struggled with a team that they are really better than. And in Game 1 and Game 3 of that series, they struggled to score goals. Game 2 was a little different. They were able to really flex their offensive power. But I think there's no better team in women's college hockey right now than the Colgate Raiders. They're a top 5 team in college hockey right now. And Clarkson, they really had a slow start this season, and we thought maybe Clarkson would take a step back this year. They're right back in the top 10 as well. So right now, kind of like what you said, Tom, Quinnipiac's in that weird middle spot at number 3. I think they're better than St. Lawrence, but right now I have to take Colgate and I have to take Clarkson over the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team.
You know what's interesting, that Clarkson spot, because with their program in jeopardy right now, who knows, that spot could be up for grabs.
Continuing with women's ice hockey, the Bobcats won 2 out of 3 games in the series against St. Lawrence. Stephen, what player or factor was the biggest game changer in Game 2 of the series?
Yeah, well, I got to go Taylor Gerard on the weekend, really. Taylor Gerard averaged a point per game in those 3 games, 3 points, a goal and an assist over the final 2 games as well. She's 3rd on the team in goals, assists, points, and 12 scoring chances. That tells me something. That tells me she's getting a lot of opportunities, and she's capitalizing right now on those opportunities. So she's generating chances for herself. She's making plays in space, and she's able to capitalize on those chances. And I think Taylor Gerard had a really, really good weekend for Quinnipiac in a weekend where they really didn't score a ton of goals.
Gerard probably was the best individual difference maker. I'm going more team-oriented for this question. I like that Quinnipiac, over the last 2 games, that series, they stopped beating themselves. After Game 1, Cass Turner said, it was close the whole way. They just lost their focus in a couple key spots. They had to dictate the pace, play their way, the Quinnipiac way, as she put it. And I think they did that the last 2 games. They took 3 penalties in Game 1. They only took 4 penalties the rest of the series, which really shows you how they cleaned up their game discipline-wise. They only allowed 34 shots total in the last 2 games. That's a game's worth of shots that they allowed over 2 games. They stingy defense. They're doing what they did best. I liked seeing that bounce-back effort from them those last 2 games. It's just about taking that next step and doing that every game. They showed it for 2 out of 3. I liked that they were able to stop beating themselves and buy in and do their identity and show the type of team they could be those last 2 games.
Yeah, and it would have been really interesting to see them play up against Clarkson this week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not happening with Clarkson being put on pause, but we should be able to see in the coming weeks how good this Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team is.
Well, it's time to take a break from this debate. After this short commercial break, we are moving on to basketball. Stay with us.
One in three adults has pre-diabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, the boss's boss. If 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, that means it could be you, your barber, your barber's barber.
Nice work.
Thanks.
You, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker,
On your left.
your cat jogger. Or you, your co-pilot, your co-pilot's co-pilot. While 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, with early diagnosis, pre-diabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand.
Welcome back, everyone. This weekend, the women's basketball team swept the 2-game series against Fairfield. Stephen, was this a statement weekend for the Bobcats?
No. The statement was already made weeks ago. The Quinnipiac women's basketball team has been red hot. They have made that statement that they are one of the best teams in this MAC conference right now, sitting at number 2, despite that one hiccup against Ryder a couple of weeks ago. They've got 4 games left against some bottom opponents, so they can really jump on the opportunity to move up in the standings against Marist. I think they have a great case of being one of the best teams in that MAC conference. I'd be very shocked if they dropped a single game in their Final Four these upcoming weeks. I don't see them getting that number 1 seed just yet. If you look at Marist's schedule, they have a pretty weak schedule at the end of the year as well. But Quinnipiac's statement weekend was a long time ago, and I think they are in prime contention to be one of the contenders, and we use that for women's hockey, in the MAC conference.
See, I think this was a statement weekend. I think that some of those wins that you mentioned on that win streak, bit of a lighter schedule. This was a measuring stick series against Fairfield, quite frankly. Fairfield and Quinnipiac were the only 2 teams to beat Marist this year. It was first in the conference, so they can beat the best. Fairfield was 6-1. They're an elite 3-point shooting team. Quinnipiac, though, they made light work of Fairfield. Mac DeWeese pestered them. She came up with steals, turned them into transition points. Rose Caverly was on fire. Michaela Morris dominated the glass. A couple of stats really stood out to me from each game. Game 1, Fairfield shot 1 free throw the entire game. That is just terrific discipline. By the way, they missed that free throw. Quinnipiac, it's unheard of to be that well disciplined over an entire game. That was a big reason, I think, why they took game 1. Then game 2, Fairfield shot 29% from the floor and 18% from 3. They were well over 40% from both those categories coming into the weekend. The Quinnipiac, this says everything about their defense, their ability to go up against top-level competition, score, and more importantly, keep them off the scoreboard. I think it is a big-time statement because this is their first weekend against a big-time opponent since that Marist game, and they took care of business.
Yeah, you got to think the program's taken a half step back the last couple of years with the contention that they had for the better part of 5 seasons. Now it feels like they're kind of in that space again where they have a serious chance of winning the conference.
For sure.
Well, continuing with women's basketball, Tom, who or what is Quinnipiac's biggest asset down the home stretch?
Maggie, I love how this team does the little things, and they do them really, really well. That could sound cliche, but honestly, I do mean it as a great compliment. First of all, they're ferocious on the glass. Michaela Morris, one of the best rebounders in the conference. Quinnipiac, no team in the MAC gets more rebounds than Quinnipiac. They also have a great feisty defense. They're second in the MAC in opponents' field goal percentage, 35%. They also have the fewest offensive turnovers and middle of the pack in terms of defensive turnovers. So they hang on to the ball. They get second chances with the rebounds. They just play fundamental basketball. And at the end of the day, too, they have depth. And the thing that makes their depth unique is they have a lot of people who could be closers. It's a different person every night. There's been games where Bonner's been the closer, games where Free popped off the bench, and of course Deweese and Morris and Caverly leading the way. This team, they get the little things, and that's a testament to their coaching staff.
Yeah, I got to go with Rose Caverly. It is, as Stephen A. could put it, she is a baller. She is flat out one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter on this Quinnipiac women's basketball team, one of the best ball handlers as well. She was able to match a very electric Fairfield offense this weekend and really make them keep Quinnipiac in the game and then eventually obviously winning those 2 games. She's third on the team in scoring this year. She's led the team in points last weekend in the second game, was second in the game on Friday. If she could become a third scorer, a reputable third scorer on this Quinnipiac women's basketball team, you're talking about a dangerous top 3 the Quinnipiac women's basketball team is going to be trotting out there every single night. Possibly a MAC championship team that the Quinnipiac women's basketball team is putting out there.
It's definitely possible. If Rose keeps shooting like that, they're going to be well on their way.
Moving on to men's basketball, it has been a weird season for the Bobcats due to the pandemic. Stephen, what impact, if any, has home court advantage had on this team?
I got to be honest. I don't think it's got much disadvantage to this team. Right now, they're very young, and I don't think they're that talented of a team right now. They've struggled all season so far. They're losers of 6 of their last 8 with going 2-4 at home during that time span. Outside of Jacob Bergoni, who's a streaky shooter but a very good shooter when he's on, there isn't a single offensive player really on this team that would scare me throwing out there every single night when they got to go play. They're in the middle of the pack of the offense. They are a below average defensive team, and I think that's really hurting them this season. They're really missing Kevin Marfo as well. Their rebound margin is one of the worst in the MAC conference, and you'd think with a guy like Seth Pinckney, that should be up there in the MAC with a guy so tall and be able to pull down those boards. Quinnipiac has just not done a good job of rebounding the basketball this year.
Yeah, home, road, Connecticut, wherever. I don't think that the home court advantage has anything to do with the season this year for the men's basketball team. They are better at home than on the road. I mean, that's the case for pretty much every team. It's always been the case. But like you said, it's more so this team, they're struggling in terms of talent right now. They commit way too many turnovers. They don't have a consistent number 1 option they can count on in crunch time. And the thing with the women's basketball team, they don't have a number 1 option either per se because they have like 3 or 4 different people that could take that last shot and are willing to take it. Quinnipiac, the men's basketball team, they don't really have that closer. And there could be fans, there could be home every game. That's not going to stop the turnover problems that have, and the problems on the glass that have really held this team back. They could be playing anywhere. There could be fans. There could be no fans. They got to step it up. And I don't think playing home or road is really the reason why.
Men's basketball struggled against Canisius this past weekend, blowing a 15-point lead in Game 1 and unable to get steady offense going in Game 2. Tom, what improvements need to be made before tomorrow's game against Iona?
Well, there's an interesting opportunity here to kind of steal a game because Iona, it's going to take a huge commitment from Quinnipiac on the boards. Iona is the best team in the MAC in terms of rebounding margin. Quinnipiac is the worst. So if Quinnipiac can find a way to win the battle on the glass, I think they can shoot with Iona in terms of some of the offensive numbers. And the wing defense is okay. The rebounding, though, is where this team really needs to handle Iona. They got 3 guys. They've got Nelly Jr. Joseph, they've got John Lewis, and they've got Dylan Van Eyck. All these guys, they got 6+ rebounds a game. No one on Quinnipiac has more than 5.7. That's Jacob Bergoni. He's a great player. He's a good shooter, but it's weird that he's the team's leading rebounder. That shouldn't be the case. I'm looking for Seth Pinckney to be a big-time rebounder this weekend for Quinnipiac because that's what they're going to need if they're going to take out Iona, who's a great rebounding team.
Yeah, and frankly, I think it's tough to see this Quinnipiac team improve the rest of this season. I think they are what they are. You know, the old saying, you say you are what your record says you are. And right now, the Quinnipiac Bobcats are just not a very good basketball team, but that's all right. They're a young team, and what losing sometimes does to a young team, it gets them to learn. And when this team can learn down the road, they learn that, hey, in this situation, we can't really be doing this if we want to win a game. Like I mentioned, the young team, they're going to grow throughout the years. If you look at their roster, they have 9 players who are a first year or a sophomore out of 14 players. So if you're telling me that this team's got to go through some growing pains maybe this year in a weird COVID year, then I'm all for it if it means down the line Baker Dunleavy's team is hoisting a MAC championship.
I agree with you that it's okay for this team this year, but all in all, this sounds a lot like those excuses you throw out for your young Rangers team every night that just has not been able to take the step.
Well, after this short commercial break, we'll give you QBSN's Game of the Week and, of course, our final roars. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for sticking around. We will get to our final roars in a minute, but first, here's QBSN's Game of the Week. Saturday afternoon was senior day for Quinnipiac women's basketball team. They beat Fairfield 60-44 with the proud families of Vanessa Udoji and Kiara Bikini watching at home. The game was filled with three-point shooting, electric defense, and lots of smiles, but perhaps no storyline was bigger than the return of sophomore forward Kat Almeida. Kat played in her first game since being diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and although she played for just a minute, she tallied a huge block over Rachel Hakes of Fairfield. With this win, the Bobcats moved into sole possession of second place in the MAC. They take on Marist tomorrow night at the People's United Center. Stephen and Tom, what do you guys think of this?
Yeah, it's incredible that Kat Almeida is able to come back from thyroid cancer. It's so much bigger than the actual sport itself to be able to fight through cancer. And I've been lucky enough, obviously, not to go through that as well. I can't imagine what she had to go through during that time in the hospital, but it's incredible to see her back on the court.
Yeah, the impact on the team, you know, this is a very close-knit team. Jen Fay, the assistant coach, she's been teammates with some of these players. This team is already very close-knit. Then you factor in a cancer diagnosis during COVID times. I mean, it could be pretty easy to fall apart, but this team stays strong, they stay resolute, and Almeida, that block, that's a highlight reel.
Well, it's that time of the night, time for final roars. First up, Steven, take it away.
Ice hockey, in my opinion, is the most exciting sport in the world. But sometimes it's not always the most exciting team that wins the game. Case in point, Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team. Despite their most recent 9-0 win over Colgate, The Bobcats offense has been pretty pedestrian, averaging 2.5 goals per game in conference before their 9-0 win. The Bobcats have relied on their strong defense and strong goaltending the team has. Like Tom and I have referenced so much off camera, this team reminds us of the 2018-19 St. Louis Blues. A few stars at the top of their lineup, and they're role players that make the plays that they need to. Do they score the flashiest goals? No. But every player on that team knows where they need to be at all times, suffocating opponents and backboned by one of the best goalies in the country. While the Blues went on to win the Stanley Cup in 2018-19, the Bobcats' fate is still in the air whether they will be hoisting the Frozen Four championship in Pittsburgh this May, a place Quinnipiac has some unfinished business to take care of.
The last time we saw the Bobcats baseball team at Quinnipiac was in May of 2019. A lot has changed since then, but the Bobcats are poised for another year as one of the leading MAC title favorites. Of course, the Bobcats are the defending MAC champs. We never got into conference play last season, but the team still looks mostly the same as last year. Most of the seniors are back from last year's squad, eligible to play one more season due to the season cancellation. I spoke with Evan Vogelmore recently, one of those fifth-year seniors who is coming back. He told me this is the most talented team he's ever seen from Quinnipiac. As he put it, the team will run out a starting pitcher each day who can throw 90 miles per hour. The lineup is both athletic and versatile, rife with players who can field many positions. And this already close team has bonded even more in light of all that's happened since last year. The schedule will present challenges, several doubleheaders. Of course, COVID-19 is always present, but this team is at its best when it's overcoming adversity. There's no reason not to expect another banner year from the Bobcats baseball team, as they try to become the first team since Manhattan in 2012 to repeat as MAC champions.
As a second semester senior, looking back on my time at Quinnipiac, certain sports games stand out to me as fond memories. I'll never forget my first Quinnipiac vs. Yale ice hockey game, watching a rugby game with my dad, or even getting stung by a bee at a men's soccer game while filming it. After having played several sports in high school, I know how a crowd filled with cheering fans can impact players' performances during a game. And now with COVID-19 protocols in full swing, the stands have been empty for a long time. This has become a chance for teams to dig deep within themselves and rely on their teammates and their knowledge that this won't last forever. And that might be motivating. But what COVID shed light on is that whether there's a pandemic or not, the stands seem to always be lacking those cheering fans. One problem is the lack of publicity when it comes to when and where sports games are. Many students find it difficult to navigate getting tickets for games. With that being said, a lot of responsibility has to fall on students to cheer on their sports teams. At the end of the day, it seems like students lack interest in how the Bobcats are doing, rather than being there themselves and pushing for them to succeed. What COVID has taught me is that you can't take your time here for granted. I had a lot of plans for this year that had to be pushed aside due to the pandemic. Games I wanted to see and memories I wanted to make. All I can say is when things go back to how they used to be, try to get to those games because you never know how many you have left. Being a student is such a special thing, and being with your friends at that big game is something that unifies a school and grows morale. Well, that is all we have for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check us out on websites q30tv.com and theqbsn.com, and on social at Q30TV and QBSN. And of course, on our new Q30 app. For Stephen, Tom, and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Maggie Smith. Have a great night.